Hey everybody, this is Freddy with LeviathanScuba.com. Guess what? You have too much air in your BC. How much is too much? We'll get to that in just a minute. So what the heck do I mean when I say you have too much air in your BC? Well, exactly that. Anybody that puts air in their BC, other than trying to stay on the surface while they're diving, you should have zero air in your BC. Oh, I have a lot of people disagree with that because they say, I need air in my BC. Why? Because I'll sink. Why? Because I have weight in my weight belt or my pouches. Why? My point is this: we train you improperly because it's the lesser of two evils. When you're a brand new student, we overweight you a little bit so you can stay near us, you can stay on the bottom of the pool. If you were underweighted, you'd be floating on the surface. We'd be grabbing you and pulling you down all the time, right? So to get you down here, we have to start brand new students overweighted. Well, for some reason, they must think that's normal, that that's the way you're supposed to do it. But I'm here to convince you, zero air in your BC. When I teach proper buoyancy techniques, what do? I disconnect the hose. I pop the hose off so you can't even inflate the BC at all, even if you wanted to. It won't hold one air. Why do I do that? Because you will rapidly learn the value of getting properly weighted, because that's the challenge here. If you will sink because you have zero air in your BC, you are overweighted. Simple answer. That's it. You have too much lead. Get rid of the lead and you won't sink, okay? Your goal is obviously to find where you're neutral, but people don't get there because it's a moving target. It's tricky to explain, but here's the answer. When you're brand new, your brain wants you to inflate your lungs almost full. Well, those are big balloons underwater, and they require lead to take you down. So in the very beginning, you do use more lead. And it's a trick to eliminate it, but it takes skill, takes practice, and sometimes it just takes timing because your brain convinces you, I'm gonna die, so keep your lungs full. But at some point you're gonna relax. So if you start out breathing and your lungs are full, you're not doing that right now. You're sitting in your chair, you're comfy, you're breathing normal. What's normal? About 2/3 in, about 2/3 out, down to about 1/3 left. If you did that underwater, you'd require a whole lot less lead than if your lungs were full. Well, it does take practice. Your brain doesn't like that because it thinks you're going to die. You're not supposed to breathe underwater. So it wants to fill your lungs more. No problem. Once you practice and your brain becomes satisfied you're not going to die, it's going to allow you to dive normally. So for a lot of brand new divers, you see them on a trip. They'll start out with one amount of weight, and I'll say, wow, that's too much. Yeah, but Freddie, I can't get down. I go, you will, no problem, it'll come. And as the week progresses, towards the end of the week, they have a lot less lead in there. So let's talk a little bit about what the air in your BC is doing that makes it bad. Let's just say, for example, you have this much air in your BC at the surface. Well, what's going to happen if you dive down? You have this much air in your BC. Would you think that's the same amount of lift as this? No, it's not. So if you get used to the lift you need on the surface with this much air in your BC, when you go down and it's this much, what do? You inflate more air in your BC to bring it back to this. Okay. And you go deeper again, and it goes smaller again. And then what do? You add air again to get your lift the same. Can you see? This is a moving target. It keeps changing with every foot of depth, technically. And then when you start to come up, it also interferes with your buoyancy because it's small, and as you rise, it gets bigger. Now it has more lift, and you have to dump. And then it keeps coming up, and it gets more and more and more lift. You're constantly messing with your buoyancy, and you're constantly messing with the air in your BC. So wouldn't it be simple if it was possible to have zero air in your BC? Nothing changes with depth. Nothing, okay? Technically, the air bubbles in your suit are going to decrease a little bit, but guess what? That's easily overcome by just the air in your lungs. So here's the trick. This is what your goal is. This is where you're going to head and what you're going to learn. With zero air in your BC, find the proper amount of lead that you need to hold you and your suit down. Some people are positively buoyant naturally. If they were in their swimsuit in a swimming pool, they would float. Some people are negatively buoyant, they would sink, right? Sometimes it's a little bit about how much you have around the middle, but everybody's different. So everybody can offset it just with the lungs and a little bit of lead. If your wetsuit you're wearing, no matter the thickness, 3, 5, or 7 mil, let's say it has 3 pounds of positive buoyancy, you're going to offset that with 3 pounds of lead to come back to neutral. If it's 5 pounds, you're going to offset it with 5. Makes sense? But what you're not going to do is put 15 pounds of lead in there and then fill your BC up to hold you neutral, because you're going to be messing with it the whole time. You're never going to achieve neutral buoyancy. So here's the goal. You want to do with as little lead as you absolutely can, right? To where you're not buoyant, you're not floating, okay? And then usually a tiny bit more. Why? Your scuba tank is heavy by about 3 pounds when it's full, but when you're breathing out of it, you're emptying it, believe it or not, it becomes around 4 pounds buoyant. So there is that 7 pounds. You can achieve that alone with just your breathing if you have the proper amount of lead. I'll give you a trick. Many people determine how much lead they need at the beginning of their dive. At nose level, with their lungs full, their nose out of the water, they find that lead. I'll share with you a better one. Because your tank needs to find a balance between being negative and positive, how about 800 psi left in your tank? That's about neutral, most tanks. 20 feet deep during a safety stop, 800 psi in your tank, you should be able to hold perfectly still. If you sink with a half lung full of air, just about a half, if you sink, too much lead. If you float, too little lead, okay? That's the best test I know of finding it out, okay? So let's get rid of that air, right? Dump it. Get your BC totally empty. Practice in a pool maybe with 0 air. Disconnect it so you're not even allowed to put any air in. And then practice. Swim around a little bit starting in the shallow end. You should be able to inhale and rise, exhale and sink if you get your weight right with 0 air in your BC. I hope it helped. Let's make it a great day. You know, the difference between a new diver and an experienced diver is often the tips and the tricks they learn along the way. That's why we do these, to help you. If you can think of someone else you think might benefit from the tips and tricks, just share the videos with them. And you know how you can help us? Just hit that like button below. That'll help us. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and we'll let you know when the next video comes out. Have a great day.